Hello, good afternoon. Hi, James. You're my
Hello,
James.
everyone.
Doing well. Thank you for joining us today. It is 12 o'clock on April 12th. April already. And today's webinar is on assistive technology for food preparation, eating, and drinking. I'm going to put a link to download the slides in the chat, and they were also in the email that was sent about an hour before the webinar. So we can put those in there again if we have more folks attending. So you can go ahead and download a copy of the slides from the chat if you'd like. Follow along, click on links. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to ask. This is meant to be kind of a informal, fun learning opportunity. And I am going to do a brief introduction of myself and allow James to do the same. And we'll get going with our main content. So my name is Courtney Ness-Fuchs. I am an assistive technology training specialist with North Dakota Assistive. I've been with the organization about 10 years, and my role is to help build knowledge and capacity of individuals throughout the state of North Dakota and collaborate with Minnesota to help folks know more about assistive technology, know about resources. Most of my work is aimed at service providers, but I'm also happy to work with anyone who calls or comes in the door. James, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is James Werenberg. I'm an assistive technology specialist with the Minnesota STAR program, which is Minnesota's federally funded assistive technology program. I help individuals with consults and loans as well to loan our devices from our lending library. So we're happy to be partnering with North Dakota Assistive and Courtney to bring to you guys several of our webinars. So today is going to be a really fun one centered around my favorite subject, which is food.
My favorite subject too. Absolutely. I've got one question in the Q&A. Okay, somebody asked if I could repost the slide deck. I'm going to do that right now. I still have it pasted. Okay, so I reposted that. If there are any other questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, or you can raise your hand. And James is going to be monitoring that just in case things pop up. So hopefully we'll get all your questions asked or answered. You can get them asked, we get them answered. Got it. So this webinar, we originally were going to do assistive technology for the entire gamut of food and eating, drinking, everything from recipe selection to shopping, actually preparing food, eating, drinking, washing up, all of it. As we were researching and putting this together, there was so much amazing tech devices, suggestions out there that we decided to split this into a multi-part series. Everyone needs to eat, and this is just such a central, food is so central to our life that we felt it was worthwhile. And so that's why we decided to split it. So I hope that doesn't ruffle too many feathers, but hopefully you'll get some good information out of this. This first part, we decided to focus on cooking at home. So what does that mean? It's a lot of different things.
Courtney, we have another question saying that the slide deck is been disabled. So is there another way to access the slide deck?
Let me grab it.
Maybe you could throw it up in the chat.
Yes.
Or I could do that actually.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know if I have the most current one. So if you could.
Yes. Let's try this. Oh, the chat is disabled. Thank you to my tech savvy person. Everyone, it really helps, guys. I have these moments, as I'm sure everybody does, but I seem to have a lot of them. So please forgive me, and let's try that. Thank you to my tech savvy person who let me know that the chat was disabled. I think that was a problem. I'm going to assume we're good to go until I hear otherwise. And Jameis is testing. Good, I can see it. Okay, well, let's just assume everybody can see it right now, okay?
I'll working on my end.
Okay, sounds good. So what we're going to cover during today's section is, like I said, cooking at home. And that is there's so many components to cooking at home. And so what we're going to do today is look at setting up your kitchen for success. The concept of mise en place, which is a French term used by chefs around the world. And it's the concept of everything in its place. And it's part of that setting yourself up for success. We'll also look at different openers for cans, jars, and bottles. We'll look at cooking utensils, ways to adapt them, and also adapted ones, measuring of ingredients, cutting, chopping, slicing, dicing, all those components, then combining ingredients, cooking on the stovetop and in the oven, and timers. I didn't include information on things like air fryers or Keurigs, but that doesn't mean we can't cover them in a later session. There was just so much information we were trying to get to, so I thought I'd focus on the things that most folks would probably have in their cooking environment. Okay, so first part is setting yourself up for success. And for this, I encourage you to think like a chef. What would a chef do that ensures that they can prepare, hundreds of meals in a short time frame? The first part is that they have a functional work environment. I talked with a couple of OTs we have on staff to get their perspective on what good things were for food preparation and eating and dining. And the first thing they both mentioned was having a functional work area. So getting everything you need in one convenient place to reduce the amount of energy you need to expend, either mental energy if you're like me and you're looking all over for things, or physical energy by reducing the number of steps you need to make. So make a functional work environment. You could have zones for different types of activities. So like we are huge coffee people in my house. So I literally have an entire section of my kitchen that's for coffee. So on the countertop, I have our different coffee makers and stuff. And above that is where we have our coffee beans and our espresso pods and our coffee cups, and they're all right there together. We also have like a little baking area where we have all the baking stuff together, and that's functional for me and what we do. Some ways you can put items in a convenient location are by using a magnetic knife rack or a hanging utensil holder. So there's a picture on the slide, and this is actually taken from a blogger, and her title of her page is Stump Kitchen. So this is a gal that was born with a limb difference, and she's actually a vegan cook who uploads to YouTube and everything. And she had a post that talked about what she does in her kitchen to help her succeed. And so right now we're looking at directly over her oven, she has
Courtney.
Yes.
I'm not seeing that slide. We're still on the first slide.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you, James.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So this picture, now that you can actually see it, is of her kitchen. So this is right above her stove where she does most of her work. And she has a hanging rack with hooks, and she's got her frequently used utensils on there. Right next to it, she's got a magnetic knife rack with a few knives. And so she's made it functional, easily available for her. The other thing when I was talking with those OTs we have is good lighting. I know most of us probably just have our overhead lights from our kitchen, which usually puts them behind our back. But if you have any side of visual impairment, a good light can really help you. So you could consider like an under cabinet light. They're stick-on ones. I put a link on the slide, and this is to, I think, Home Depot, where they just had a ton of different ideas. But you could also do like a nice little task lamp. Just consider lighting when you're doing that. If you tire easily, maybe put a little stool in there and do your work from a stool or someplace where you can rest. And then if you have any sort of vision impairment, make sure you're considering countertop and counter contrast or cabinet contrast, so you can more easily identify where things are. Okay. Another part of setting ourselves up for success, and this kind of goes to creating a functional environment, is if you are visually impaired, it might be great. You might have a wonderful alphabetized spice rack, but if you aren't able to see the labels on there, how are you going to know that you're grabbing the cumin and not the paprika? One way to do that is using these items called way around tags. So these are small little tags, and there's lots of components or lots of styles to them for different types of items. And they use a free app on your smartphone, and you bring the app by it and scan the tag, and the tag, it'll read to you from your smartphone whatever information you've programmed in there. So it could be the name of, say, the spice. I thought I was on Do Not Disturb, but apparently I wasn't. It could be the name of the spice and the expiration date. It could be the cooking instructions, whatever it is that you want to program in there. And like I said, there are different styles for almost any type of item you might be adhering it to, be it a milk carton, spices. There's a picture on the screen of 5 different types of spices in identical shaped spice jars, and they have these way around tags just stuck on the top. You could use a rubber band to secure it to a ketchup bottle or whatever it is. Another way to help someone with visual impairment be successful and have a functional environment for them is through the use of tactile markers. So especially on appliances. So we could consider a bump dot. So the picture on the left is just of an orange bump dot. It's a raised dot that when you run your finger over it, you can tell that it's raised up, and it can give you an indication. There's also tactile icon stickers, which are in the shape of commonly used controls, like the play button, an X for cancel, up and down arrows for increase, decrease. So that's the other picture I have on there, is from a company called Halo's tactile icon stickers, and they have them for different appliances. Yeah. Okay, so now that we've set up our environment, we need to put our ingredients into place. So this is that concept of mise en place, or everything in its place. And this can be used for any type of project you're working on, but it's getting all the components ready to go before you start. So the picture on the screen is of a person chopping an onion on a cutting board, and they're surrounded by different little bowls of their ingredients that are already prepared. So they have beans, they have celery that's chopped, carrots that are chopped, etc. So when it's time to put the celery in the pan, they're not thinking, oh gosh, I haven't chopped the celery yet. So mise en place, everything in its place. It can also relieve some of the stress of cooking, and can be very helpful for anyone with an executive functioning need. Next slide I went into, this is about grippers, opening cans and jars. It's so common for so many people having trouble with that. So I've got a couple different types of grippers on the screen. First one is from Dysum. Dysum is this amazing non-slip material. And this is a kind of a cone-shaped holder that you put in your hand, and you can use it to give yourself extra grip when you're opening a jar. And then on the right side of the screen, we have the spill not jar opener. And this is a little device that sits on the counter. I've had folks guess that it's like a dog food bowl. It's not, but it's got 3 different sizes of compartments for different types of containers. And then it also comes with cone-shaped grippers for on top. And you put your can or your jar inside the appropriate compartment. It's got a non-slip coating, and then you can use the gripper to twist it open. You can also put things like pill bottles in there, or cans. Put your can in there so it's stabilized, and then you could use like a pop top can opener. There are bajillion types of can and jar openers out there on the market. I just picked a few options that aren't like the powered ones that you have sitting on your countertop. First one is called the Kitchen Mama. It's on the left-hand side of the screen. This is a 1-button can opener, can opener that actually cuts the lid all the way off from the top, and it doesn't leave any sharp edges. And you hold it in your hand. There's 1 button. You press it, it'll open up your can, and then it's magnetic, so it'll lift off the lid. Next to that, I have a 5-in-1 jar opener. So it's a U shape, and it's got 4 different sizes of openings. And the outside of the U is very grippy silicone, and you can put this around, say, a jar to help you have more leverage to open it and turn it. It's also got a tab top opener, a bottle opener, and really good grip. And then the third one I have up there on the right side, this is called the Easy Off Jar Opener. This one actually mounts underneath your cabinet, and you put your jar in it, and then it's a V shape with teeth, I would say, I'd call those teeth, and you twist it. So it's kind of holding the lid, and you twist the bottle itself. They also make ones of these that sit on the counter, and those would hold the jar, and you would twist the top. The V shape allows it to accommodate several different sizes of containers. So right now, the picture is showing a mason jar that's being opened using it. Next thing we're going to talk about is utensils and tools. Researching for this, I was able to read lots of different blogs from individuals with disabilities that are home cooks, that are chefs. And the number one thing they talked about was just having well-made tools, having sharp knives. So look for tools that are well-made. Look for items that have ergonomic grips or cushion grips. Sometimes they have both. So for example, the OXO Good Grips line, that line of tools, they all have these cushioned ergonomic grips. They're well-made tools. I think the founder's sister had arthritis, and the founder set out to create tools that his sister could use, and that would be comfortable for her to use. So all of their Good Grips line has these great handles. Also look for quality blades that'll keep their edge. Sharp knives are safer knives. Another style of ergonomic device you can have are like handheld palm devices. So on the screen, we have the palm peeler. It actually sits in the palm of one's hand. And then instead of having to hold in a grasp position, you put it in the palm of your hand, and it doesn't require as much dexterity in your fingers. And then you can run your palm over, say, a carrot to peel it. The same company makes like a zester and a vegetable brush. Those are really nice. And they actually secure to your middle finger on top. So the blade is on the underside, and then there's a kind of a ring that you put over your finger. There are some add-ons that you can add if you have favorite utensils. I've had the same wooden spoons for a very long time. They are my favorites. And if I were to need a tool, I think I would look for an add-on first. So on the left side of the screen, we have these silicone grips that could be added onto lots of different sizes of items. On the top
Courtney,
right, yes.
so these are one of my favorite things to recommend to people because they're super cheap and they come in a variety pack and they're super stretchy. And so you can wrap it around pretty much anything that you need. And they're very easy to clean up as well. And they hold up in the dishwasher. So they're really good to sanitize as well.
I love that. Yeah, those silicone ones are just so handy.
And actually, just a quick little story. So I had a individual who had limited hand mobility that liked to knit big latch hook rugs. And so we were able to hook up that big knitting needle with one of these easy holds, and they were able to knit again. So it created quite the joy in her life to be able to do that again.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. Another add-on we can have is like this foam grip tubing, they call it. Is just imagine like a tiny pool noodle that you slide over a utensil. So there's different sizes of openings on the inside of the tubing, depending on what it is you're adding. On the screen, they're demonstrating that you can put like a marker in it, a razor, or a spoon for different sizes. You could also consider these items called industrial twist ties, and they come in different lengths, like 12 inches and 18 inches. And they're basically like a giant twist tie that has foam on the outside. And you could create your own handle using those twist ties. A couple more ways to make your favorite utensils easier to hold is with Dyson. So Dyson is that non-slip material. Dyson makes these self-adhesive strips that you can use to wrap around a utensil. So there's the picture on the screen is showing someone wrapping this Dyson grip around a fork. Another way is using a material called Instamorph, which is a moldable plastic that you get it warm, and then you can mold it into the shape that you need and create your own custom ergonomic grip. So the picture on the right side of the screen is a spoon that has a custom made Instamorph grip on it. So it's a built up handle, and you can see where it fits perfectly for that person's hand. And I was actually able to find a how-to from the tech program in Rhode Island, the Assistive Tech program, about how to make your own built-up utensil using Instamark. Okay. We're going to go into measuring ingredients. Is there, someone asks if there's anything like Instamorph that can go in the dishwasher and not melt. Not that I am aware of. Instamorph, you can wash it using like lukewarm water because you need fairly warm water to reshape it. But as far as something that can go in the dishwasher, I'm not really aware of anything. Doesn't mean it's not out there. It's just that I'm not aware of it. Jameis, do you have any ideas?
I am in the same boat as you. I'm not aware of anything off the top of my head without doing a little research, but
Okay. Okay, well, we're gonna move along to measuring. So measuring ingredients can be very hard if you have a vision impairment and your measuring cups have no contrast in the writing or they're worn off. There are large print bolded measuring spoons. So a picture on the right is of these set of measuring cups and spoons that are black, and then they have a green, like kind of like a lime green inside and black text on that. That gives the measurement sizes. There's different colors of measuring cups with different sizes of text. If you look for like a large print measuring cup, that might help you get there. Find what works best for your vision needs. There are Braille measuring cups as well. On the left side of the screen, I actually have a set of color-coded measuring cups and spoons. So if you can remember that the orange means 1 cup, and if you can remember that coding, you'll see, you'll be able to tell that that you have the wrong cup size, for example. So there's 5 different sizes of those cups. They're all different colors. Each color is for a different size of measurement. Another idea to consider for measuring ingredients are like Montessori tools or learning manipulatives. So on the screen is a set of measuring cups and measuring spoons that are actually developed to teach fractions, the concept of fractions. So it's really cool. So I'm just going to talk about the measuring cups. The 1 cup is red, and it's a circle, just like a standard measuring cup. The half cup is pink, but it's actually a semicircle. So it's half of that circle. The third of a cup measurement is orange, and it's an obtuse triangle shape with semicircle back. And then the quarter cup is yellow, and it's like a quarter, like if you're going from 12 p.m. or 12 to 3 on a clock, that's what it looks like. So those are another way, if you can feel the difference of those devices. Another option for measuring ingredients is to use a scale. If you've ever watched like the Great British Bake Off, they're all about measuring their ingredients instead of using volumetric measurements. So you could use a talking scale if you need that talking component. So I just have a picture of a talking kitchen scale. These can be used to measure both liquid and dry ingredients. Oh, I clicked on the link.
Courtney, you're about halfway through.
Thank you. We can measure liquids. Another couple options for measuring liquids, if you're maybe not able to see, is a talking liquid jug. So it's a liquid measuring cup that talks to you and tells you how much liquid you're dispensing. Another option is to consider a smart faucet, and this will of course only distribute water, but you can have a smart faucet, and then if it's connected to, say, your Alexa or Google Assistant device, you could say, Alexa, give me 1 cup of lukewarm water, and it will measure for you. We're going to get into a few more options. So this slide is about Dyson, which is honestly my favorite thing. My favorite piece of assistive technology is Dyson. Dyson is this awesome non-slip material that helps with stabilization and grip. You can get it in mats, circles, rolls, opener style, like jar opener styles. They have it in strips like we saw with the Dyson strips being used to create a better grip on a fork. Dyson is washable with soap and water. You can pick it up, it doesn't leave a sticky residue on anything, just a really cool material. So picture on the left is of a person eating a meal in a hospital bed. They're using a hospital tray that has Dyson underneath of it to stabilize their plate. They also have a cup on there that has a Dyson cup holder, and their utensils have that Dyson grip on them. And then there's also a roll. So you can buy it in rolls and custom cut it to whatever your need is. For pouring, pouring a gallon of liquid can be quite difficult for most of us. So one option is called the pour thing. Jameis has the pour thing there. He's going to demonstrate. Oh, yeah.
It's really easy to manipulate with one finger or just an elbow, whatever you can use to just tip that over ever so slightly.
So you
And
put
it's small enough that will fit in the fridge. So keep your liquids cold as well.
yeah. So you put your gallon, or 2-liter bottle in there, and then it just sets in there. There's a little opening for the cap, and it tilts actually, like he said, with very little force. For pouring hot liquids, if you're visually impaired, this can be dangerous because we don't want to stick our finger in there to tell us that we've overfilled our coffee cup with scalding coffee. So you can have a liquid indicator. They call these say when, which makes me think of Doc Hollywood, say when. But these give a little audible indicator of when the liquid has reached the metal tongs that sit inside of the cup. So it just clips on the side of your cup, or sets there really, and there's metal tongs on the inside. And once liquid hits that, it gives you an audible indicator that you have reached that level. For cutting boards, that's our next section. The reason I put Dyson first before these things is because you can use Dyson in many different applications. You could put it underneath a cup, for example, that you are pouring liquid into from the pour thing. You can put it underneath a cutting board to keep it from running away from you on the counter. The right side of the screen shows a picture of actually a professional chef, their kitchen. They're lifting up their cutting board to show that they have a piece of Dyson underneath of it. You could also use just like regular shelf liner, like you can get at Bed Bath & Beyond, Home Depot, those types of places. You could get a quality cutting board that has non-slip grips on it. So the left side is these OXO cutting boards. This is a white cutting board. It's got non-slip on the long ends, grips, and it actually has a little channel for juices for meat. So those aren't going everywhere. They can kind of help you keep things clean. So that is an option. One thing that I forgot to put in here is that if you're visually impaired, consider what you're cutting and then the contrast of your cutting board to that. So if you are cutting a white onion on a white cutting board, there's really very little contrast there. It might be hard to see what you're doing. So maybe if you're cutting an onion, you want to use a dark color cutting board. Next slide, I have a combination cutting board. So this is actually a cutting board meant for someone who might move the cutting board around and needs some help stabilizing it, or maybe somebody who has the use of one hand. So this cutting board has suction cups that suction it to the counter. And then in one corner, it's got these guards. And those guards are so you can put your bread there and spread your butter on the bread without the bread kind of moving all over the place. It'll hold it in place from from one corner. And then this combination cutting board has an attached chef's knife that is that can pivot. So you don't have to worry about the knife going up because it's attached by the point. You can just move your arm up and down. It also has a couple spikes that you could spike your carrot or onion or whatever it is on. The next slide, I have the ETAC Fix Food Preparation Board, which is a mouthful. This is kind of similar to that combination cutting board where it has, they have suction cup bottoms. It comes with suction cups or non-slip. You can decide if you want to suction cup that cutting board to the counter or just use the non-slip. It has some spikes to hold something in place. So on the picture, they have a person cutting a tomato that's on those spikes. So it's holding the tomato in place. And then it's got this cool adjustable vise that has multiple purposes. So you could put, say, a loaf of bread or a slab of meat in the vise. It'll hold that bread or meat in place while you're cutting it, while you're slicing it. You could also put, say, a box grater within the vise, so your box grater isn't moving around on you. Another option they have is to use it as a stabilizer for a bowl, if you're mixing a bowl. So just a few different ideas for that device. Okay. Now we need a knife to chop. So these are some different options for adapted knives. The picture on the left-hand side of the screen is of a woman. She's chopping spinach with her little girl watching, and she's using this big curved blade that has handles on both ends of it, and you can rock back and forth, and it actually uses the weight of your body to give you the force. So you're not using your hand or your forearm so much to get the force, you're using kind of the weight of your body to rock. They call these, if you search for like a pizza cutter rocker or pizza rocker cutter or a mezzaluna knife, you'll get lots of options. Similar to that is a style of knife that's been used by indigenous people for centuries called the ulu knife. And these originate in the Alaska area. Ulu knives are curved and you hold it in the hand, but it's got a sharp curved blade. And it again uses more of your weight versus your hand strength to cut. You can buy ulu knives on their own, or they have these combinations where it's a cutting board and the cutting board is actually scooped out, it's concave to hold things in there while you're scraping, for example. And then lastly, we have an easy grip knife. Sometimes they call these Swedish knives, and they are L-shaped. And so you hold your hand in a grasp or like a handshake position instead of pointing down. So it's a little more ergonomic. And I just implore you to remember that sharp knives require less force. Getting into cutting safety, we can use a guide. So on the left-hand side of the screen, this is from that same company, ETAC. It's a safety slicing guide. So this is meant for putting mostly bread in, like a crusty bread that you're slicing, and it will hold the bread in place, and it's got a slicing guide that you put the knife within, and then your bread slices are actually the same thickness. You can get finger guards, which just protect your fingertips from getting cut off. I'm sure most people have probably nipped their finger with a knife at some point in time, and we're not all professionals that can remember to hold our fingers in like the chefs do. So these finger guards just slide on your finger and provide a little shield for it. You could consider a crinkle cutter or a wavy knife. You push down on those to cut. I have one on the next slide that has a little better picture. You can have a spiky little onion holder. So you're not holding the onion with your hand, cutting with the other, but you're holding the onion with this little spiky thing, or a kind of a claw type of thing to hold food. And then also finger guards for putting over your fingertips or thumbs. And then lastly, for cutting safety, you could consider cut resistant gloves. And there's different thicknesses of these. They're made of this material that you're supposed to be able to like run a knife across and not slice your palm open or your hand open. I know they're not that great for like if you poke yourself with a knife, but if you accidentally slice your finger, for example, with a knife, should prevent you from getting too serious of an injury.
I just want to say, Courtney, I use the onion holder myself when I cook because it doesn't, you don't have to hold the onion then, and your hands don't smell like onions for 2 or 3 days.
Okay, that's a good point too. If you are somebody that's worried about having too sharpened knives or too, you're worried about knife safety, you could consider like a kid's cutting set. So on the left side of the screen is actually a kid's kitchen knife set and cutting board. And it's got 3 different sizes of knives. I think they are plastic, but they're serrated, and you'd be a lot less likely to slice your finger with those. And then on the right side of the screen, we have that wavy knife again, or crinkle cutter. So you can push down on, say, zucchini, which is what's demonstrated, slice it, and it gives you these crinkle cut slices. Okay, chopping can take a lot of stamina, depending on what you're doing, and can take a lot of hand strength, can be very hard for a lot of folks. So maybe you want to consider a chopping device. So there's lots of different styles on the market. These few I found just had really good reviews. So the one on the left is the OXO chopper. There used to be an infomercial for something called the slap chop, which is just what this is. You push down with your palm on the top of it, and then there's blades underneath and a little compartment that holds whatever it is you're chopping. And all you have to do is push down. And you could do that, say, with a forearm or your palm. On the right side of the screen are 2 different styles of these choppers, multi-purpose choppers. And they have a little compartment underneath and a lid that has blades on it that pushes down into a grid of your choosing. So if you need a fine dice or a medium dice, you select the appropriate blade size. And then when you push down, it slices or dices your item. Or you can consider a food processor. There's small ones. So the one on the left is just a 1.5 cup food processor. They can do a lot. They can do a chopping, slicing, dicing. The one on the right is a larger food processor. This one from Cuisinart, and you can slice in different thicknesses. You can chop without having to use a knife so much. For mixing up your ingredients, a mixing bowl that's not going to run away from you is kind of important. There's a few different options. So the top right is called the Gorilla Grip mixing bowl. And these are really well reviewed. It's just a mixing bowl with a lip for pouring that's got a great non-slip bottom to it. So hopefully it won't move around quite as much. On the left side of the screen is a set of 3 big stainless steel mixing bowls that have a grip on the bottom. This is made by OXO brand again, that have non-slip bases. These are well reviewed as well. And then a third option is called the Stabilizer. And that's at the bottom of the screen. It's essentially a silicone holder for your bowl. So it keeps your bowl steady on the counter. You just set your existing bowl inside of it, and it'll stabilize your bowl.
Are you reading the question?
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if there's anything that I'm aware of online, but I haven't run into anything. So the question is there a alternative crinkle cutter? They used to have one um, that they would push against the item against, and it would create the crinkle cut. I'm not aware of anything like that off the top of my head either. So, but I'm doing some research right now.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I was gonna say off the top of my head, I don't have a device, but that doesn't mean there's not something out there. Yeah, I'll move along to mixing our ingredients up. So you could use a food processor for some purposes of mixing. Um, you can get a powered mixer like a KitchenAid stand mixer. So you don't, those KitchenAid mixers hold the bowl for you. So you don't have to worry about holding a bowl and holding an electric mixer at the same time. You could also consider an immersion blender. So these you hold in your hand and then the blade is in your pot or your bowl. I had a hard time describing this. But it just has a button you press and then the blade will chop up and or emulsify your ingredients. This particular immersion blender has different attachments. So it also has a whisk attachment and a food processor attachment. Um, and lastly, it has a little cylinder for holding ingredients. Often folks use immersion blenders with making soup because you don't have to transfer the soup to another container. You can use the immersion blender in your pot and make a creamy soup. The next slide we have is on seasoning. I know we're in the Midwest, but some folks still like to season their food. And that can be hard if you have a difficult time with measuring spoons or dexterity getting those items in that seasoning in there. So there's a couple options that I have on the screen. The one on the left is called the Select a Spice Auto Measure Carousel. And it is a rotating carousel style that you fill up these different compartments with your different spices. And then it's got a little slider. And when you push the slider, it dispenses a quarter of a teaspoon of that spice at a time. And if you push it again, you'd get a half a teaspoon, etc. And I believe this particular one can mount underneath a cabinet as well as sitting on a counter. And then on the right side of the screen, we just have electric pepper grinders and salt mills. So if you aren't able to use two hands to do that contrasting motion that a pepper grinder requires, there's an electric pepper grinder. You just press the button and it'll give you that freshly ground pepper. For cooking on the stove, there are several different options, and I've highlighted some different types of holders for pans. These can be helpful if the pan moves around on you, if you only have the use of one hand, or if you are visually impaired and can't see exactly where the burner is, for example. So the type of pan holder that'll work for you depends on your stove. I didn't find a whole lot of pan holders that would work on a gas stove or gas range. But on the right side of the screen, on the top right, is a device called the Pan Pickle. And this is on a glass top stove. And it is actually two banana-shaped silicone holders that you would put on the outside of your burner to keep a pot in place or a pan in place. And then in the middle of the screen, we have a different style. This is on oil burner, and it's got a saucepan that is held in place by the handle. There's a little device that suctions to your stove, and the handle slides down in between, and then you aren't able to move it around so much. If constantly whisking or stirring, like while you're making a sauce, is difficult, there are automatic pan stirrers for that. Could be a pot stirrer for you. So the left side of the screen is called an automatic pan stirrer. It's a device that you hold in your hand, like in a kind of a grip you'd use, a grasp grip, and it has feet that go down and stir your sauce or whatnot. I have read mixed reviews about these, but they're a really cool idea. I think, as time goes along, we'll get better and better iterations of these. For safety while you're cooking on the stove, if you like to use cast iron, your handles are going to get hot. And so you could consider a handle holder, a silicone handle holder. So I have a cast iron, that's mostly what I use. And I have one of these silicone handle holders on there. And boy, do I miss it when it's not on there, if I'm at somebody else's house that doesn't have them. So it just slides over the handle and makes it so that that handle is safe to touch. And then lastly, at the bottom left side of the screen, we have a utensil that can be especially helpful for some folks. And this is a double spatula tong. So it's actually two spatulas that are held together like a tong is. And those can be helpful for flipping things. The next slide I have is about cooking in the oven. So there's many reasons why cooking in the oven can be difficult for folks or unsafe. So one reason is because we will bump the oven racks and then you burn yourself, and ouch. So a simple solution is these oven rack guards that are long tubes, and I think they're silicone, and they just slide over the edge of your oven rack. So if you were to bump it, you wouldn't burn yourself.
Courtney, 7 minutes left. 7 minutes.
Thank you. Top right of the screen is a little device. It's kind of like a paint stick size. It's an oven rack push-pull puller. That's what they call them. But it's a multi-purpose device. They're made out of wood typically. And it's got a little hook that you can use to pull out your oven rack. And then you can also push in the oven rack with the end of it. So that's a push-pull puller. And then make sure you have good quality oven mitts. Don't be like my grandmother and use old kitchen towels and burn yourself. Invest in some good oven mitts. There are extra long oven mitts, so maybe you have low vision. That might be a good option because you won't always see where the rack is, for example. So on the top right is the person taking a baked dish out of the oven. They have these long silicone oven mitts that go almost up to their elbows. Conversely, if you have small hands, it might be really hard to use traditional oven mitts. You could look for mini oven mitts. So on the bottom of the screen is a person using these Gorilla Grip mini oven mitts that your fingers just go in. So they are like a little mitt that goes up, and it's all one piece, but your thumb goes in it and just your fingers. And then they're grippy, so you could use those. I think I have just 2 more slides of devices left. This slide we're on right now is about having a thermometer, an instant read thermometer, so you know that your meat is done. So they make talking versions of these instant read thermometers. This is a probe style. You put it in, wait about 2 seconds, and then it will announce the temperature of your dish. You could use it on the grill or an oven or something that you're cooking on the stove. And then lastly, I have a slide about safety devices for stove and oven. So if you have somebody, say, that is prone to walking away from their stove or oven, that can be a real hazard. So there's 2 devices on the screen, the fire avert and then the cook stop automatic oven control. And these are slightly different from each other. The cook stop senses if there's movement nearby. And if there's not movement after a set amount of time, it'll turn off your cooktop. The fire avert, it actually plugs into your stove. And if the fire avert device hears your smoke alarm, it's going to shut off your stove from the power outlet. And then a third device is a safety item, but it's a little different. This is a boil alert disc. It's like a 50-cent piece coin that you can put in a pot of liquid that you're boiling, and it will rattle to indicate that liquid is boiling. So this is helpful for someone who is visually impaired. Okay, I forgot about my timers. So 4 minutes, I see. I'll talk fast. Timers are so important when we're cooking. Most of us get distracted. I am so distracted most of the time. And, anyway, I love timers. So there's different options depending on what your needs are. The one on the left is a large print low vision timer. It is 8 inches by 8 inches square. And then this one is black with large, bold white numbers. It's a 60-minute timer. And it's actually got a pretty loud alarm as well. You could do a digital thermometer. Top one is the top picture is a large print digital timer, and it's got some different quick buttons. Put those up. And then if you need, you could have a time timer or a visual timer that you can observe the passing of time. So on the right side of the screen is a time timer, and Jameis is holding up a large time timer. And the way the time timer works is it has a red disc, and the red disc slowly disappears as the timer is going, as time passes. And then when there's no more red disc, you're out of time, and it'll beep for you. In my house, I use my Alexa device as a timer all the time for a few different reasons. One, I can set my timers using my voice. Two, I might have 3 pots going on the stove and I don't know which one my timer is telling me it's for. So I can label my timers. So for example, I could have her set Alexa or Google Assistant or Siri, whomever, set a timer for pasta and then a separate timer for my breadsticks or whatever it is I'm cooking. So you can label them. And then I can ask it to show me my current timers and have them read aloud to me. So I can see them on a screen and also have it read aloud. And then I can dismiss using my voice or a tap. Some devices also allow you to use a gesture to dismiss. So just some different ways to use your smart assistant as timers and why those can be so helpful. There are links on the right side of the screen to show you how to do that. And then the slides, last slide I have is about some other helpful resources. You can peruse those resources at your leisure. And then, like we talked about at the beginning, this is going to be part of a series because there's so much that goes into food, from preparation, eating, drinking, cleaning up. Folks that might have executive functioning needs have different needs than someone who, say, has a visual impairment. So we will talk about those different needs in later webinars.
Courtney, there was a question about link for future webinars. Is that something that you're going to email out to them? Or I also suggested to look on our social media sites where we're going to advertise the link.
Yes, and I do have it if they're still in the session. I have the link I will put in the chat here.
And I apologize too. It looks like the chat feature was not available and they couldn't see me again, Courtney. So we'll have to work out the kinks on all that for our next webinar. We apologize.
Goodness. I am so sorry. We thought we had that figured out.
Zoom is such a complex beast.
It is. Ugh. So I put a link for the next webinar on food in the chat, and I'll send it out as well.
Please tell us if you can't see it in the chat.
Please. We want to thank you for joining us. Remember your ATAC programs, so North Dakota Assistive and Minnesota STAR or other states offer demonstrations of different devices to help meet your needs, and short-term loans of some devices, so you can try them out in your own environment. So this page is my contact information for North Dakota Assistive. Courtney, ndassistive.org. It's probably the easiest way to get a hold of us. And then James in Minnesota. I'll let you talk about the easiest way to get a hold of you.
The easiest way to get a hold of us is just to email us if you have specific questions. Otherwise, we have a link to our lending library if you want to peruse it and then check out items on your own, or call us. So email or call would be quickest.
Thank you for everybody that joined us. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy days to learn with us. And I hope you have wonderful afternoons.
Thank you, everyone.